Hey everyone, it's Selwen here, and holy Avengers Shield is protection crazy right now. Like, I honestly never had so much fun in a Protection Paladin in years. Honestly, years. And, I guess that's not saying much, because I think that, in my opinion, completely subjective, that the Legion Protection Paladin and subsequently the BFA Protection Paladin was pretty boring. I think the spec suffered from spammy syndrome, as in, a lot of your abilities lacked weight and meaning. It lacked depth, right? You kind of, the way you play your Protection Paladin currently is mostly about smashing buttons, for the most part, of course. It's about mostly smashing buttons and whatever is off cooldown and just keeping up with your mitigation, and that's really was about it. There were some pretty cool ideas with the Light of the Protector, which is still here and is very cool, an improvement, and some cons as well, but we'll discuss that in a minute. But in general, I do believe that Protection Paladin is very, very good in Shadowlands and is likely to be the flavor of the month tank, let's be honest. Now, a large cause of that is, again, due to our baseline changes, due to our talents, due to our Covenant abilities. There's some really crazy Covenant abilities, due to Legendaries that we now can test. We cannot test Conduits so far on Paladins, which is a little bit sad, but I'm guessing we're gonna have some pretty cool things on there. But Conduits overall are not meaningful changes to our gameplay for the most part. Some of them do. So let's dive deep into it. So what is the meaningful, biggest change that there is in Protection Paladin in Shadowlands? Well, is Holy Power. Now, Holy Power was in Protection Paladins pre-Legion, and is a type of resource that personally, subjectively, again, I find to be pretty boring. I never really liked Holy Power when it was first introduced in Kata. Now, this current iteration of Holy Power and the way it's working with a spec in Shadowlands, I like it. I think it makes sense for the spec. It is a quote-unquote necessary evil to make the spec and all of your abilities and all of your rotation and subsequently your mitigation, all of that, to have weighty decisions and to not have that feel that all of your abilities are spammy and without meaning, right? So your Shield of Righteous, for an example, is now costing 3 Holy Power, is no longer on charges. Your Blessed Hammer, so your Hammer of the Righteous, is not generating Holy Power. Your godlike Avengers Shield, and you will understand why I'm screaming all over Avengers Shield, is also generating 1 Holy Power plus 1 more per targeted hits just on the first hit, okay? So, and you're also getting Consecration, it's not generating Holy Power. You have Judgment, which is a little bit bugged right now. I mean, currently it's saying that it's going to increase the damage of your next Holy Power ability, so your Shield of Righteous or your new Word of Glory. But I believe the true judgment that should be in protection right now is that it's going to generate also Holy Power, because we do have a talent, a Sanctified Wrath, which is causing judgments to generate 2 Holy Power, which currently isn't working at all. And since it's generating 2, I assume it's going to generate 1 baseline. And the funny thing is that even without Judgment and without this talent working, I never felt that I was hungry for Holy Power. Like, if you're worried about not having enough Holy Power to do your Shield of the Righteous and stuff like that, I never had that situation happen to me. And again, Judgment is not working, our gear is complete shit. So generation, when it comes to generation of Holy Power, our resource generation is pretty good. It flows really, really well if you play your cards right, of course. So basically, the way the spec is working now is that you're going to generate the Holy Power, right? And then you're going to have to come with some decisions of, do you use your Shield of Righteous now? Or do you keep building? Or you use your new Word of Glory, okay? So your new Word of Glory is essentially Light of the Protector. They change it back to just being a Word of Glory, which is a Paladin baseline ability. And it's also costing Holy Power 3. And it's healing you by a whole lot. It's even more, but it numbers stuff, so might be tuned, because right now it's really crazy healing that this is putting out. You can still talent into Hand of the Protector, so you'll be able to, you can use it on other, your allies and stuff like that. Currently, the way it's working now is that even without the talent, you can use it, but with the talent, you just get the modifier where it just becomes more powerful even on allies, which is very, very good. Now, if you're concerned about, well, if Word of Glory, right, if Light of the Protector, which is an emergency type of thing that you use as a Protection Paladin, is on a Holy Power cost, isn't that a little bit counterintuitive, right? If I'm in emergency, if I need an emergency healing and there's that cost involved there, isn't that a little bit annoying? Well, it's not really. I mean, for one, you do get a new passive, which is called Shining Light, which is causing your judgments to reduce the cost of your Word of Glory by 1. So if you use 3 judgments, your Word of Glory is going to become free, okay? And even if you use 1 or 2, it's going to reduce the cost. So I never felt, in my time playing this, I never felt like when I need a Word of Glory for myself or a team member, I never felt that the cost of Holy Power was getting in the way. Again, if you play your cards right, if you manage the spec well, if you manage your Shining Light stacks well, if you use it appropriately, you're going to be fine. And that's a cool decision to make there as well, which is pretty cool. So that's Word of Glory. We're going to talk about this ability more and Shield of Righteous more in a little bit, but just let's take a look at our other abilities to see what has changed. So you do get Hammer of Wrath back as well, okay? So now you can use this in execute windows, for example. You're just going to get more Holy Power, which will mean more mitigation or more self-healing to your group as well, due to Word of Glory. And at level 58, you get a modifier where Hammer of Wrath becomes usable at any percentage of health when you have Avenging Wrath up. So this is pretty cool because this is also giving extra meaning to Avenging Wrath. So Avenging Wrath is now not just a damage increase, a healing increase, it's also directly benefiting your Holy Power generation, and it's directly benefiting your mitigation by consequence. And when you pop Avenging Wrath, your next Word of Glory is going to crit. So you're going to get a huge heal out of that Word of Glory Avenging Wrath. So again, just like Hammer of Righteous, just like, Judgment and all of that, due to Holy Power, these abilities have a lot more meaning, have a lot more sense, and have a lot more depth than before, which is all positives in my book. We also have auras. We do have auras back. Some of them are kind of flavorful, like Crusader Aura, pretty flavorful stuff. We do have Devotion Aura, which is just our kind of baseline aura that we can use all the time to just reduce our damage taken. We have Concentration Aura, which is also pretty good to reduce the interrupts and silence effects on party and raid members by being a 30% shorter, which is also pretty good, but more situational, as contrary to Devotion Aura, which should be always up. And then you have Retribution Aura, which, just like I said in my Retribution video, it's a really odd right now. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. So it's essentially what it's providing you is Avenging Wrath anytime a party or raid member dies. So this is protection. So imagine your off tank or something like that. Your tank buddy dies, and you're gonna get Avenging Wrath, which will mean again Word of Glory crits, will mean more Holy Power generation, all of that, and that's cool. Again, thematically, just like I said in the Retribution video, thematically this is awesome. It feels very cool to get. The issue is that unless you have the pleasure, the luxury to have this up throughout the fight, and someone else is cucked into using Devotion Aura, right? You cannot realistically target someone dying to trigger this, this component of Retribution Aura, right? So it's impossible to target. The best use that I can see out of this is actually in PvP, where you can expect, in BGs for example, where you can expect a lot of people to die, and you can get a lot of Avenging Wraths. But in PvE situations, I think is very, very situational, and is something that, to be honest, should be on a buff if they want to keep this mechanic. Put this in a buff, it makes so much more sense. Maybe lower the duration of Avenging Wrath so it's not so powerful, and put something else on here that would make more sense as an aura, because it really does make a lot of sense as an aura right now. Okay, so that pretty much covers our baseline abilities. Again, just like I said in the beginning, the Holy Power addition just makes the spec flow much better. It makes the spec so much more fun, much more meaningful, much more exciting. You have a lot more decisions to make that before would just, mindless and brainless decisions, and now you have cool decisions to make between your Shield of Righteous and keeping that up and using a Word of Glory instead, or maximizing your Hammer of Righteous and stuff like that, so you can get the most holy power as possible. All of that is pretty cool, both in a defensive point of view or in an offensive point of view. So let's look at the talents. Now, Holy Shield is the same. Readout, I think that's how you say it. It's changed a little bit, so now your Shield of Righteous is increasing your strength and stamina by 2% for 10 seconds, stacking three times. So this feels like a very defensive type of thing. You're gonna keep this up naturally. It's very easily you're gonna be able to keep this up naturally. Again, we don't have Judgment providing that. Even then, I can keep this up really easily. With the Judgment not providing holy power because it's bugged. But you do have Blessed Hammer. Now, the way that the spec works now with holy power and stuff like that, Blessed Hammer for me just feels so much better than these other two. So much better because, well, it's giving you 3 charges for one, okay? It's giving you 3 charges, which means more on demand holy power. It just feels better to use for me. I just find it much better to use, and I feel that I can do so much more with Blessed Hammer than with Hammer of the Righteous, and it's so much easier to AoE with. So I just find this one so much better than the other choices, even though these ones still have their use. Then we have this tier, which has changed a little bit as well. We get First Avenger, which is making your Avenger's Shield hit 2 additional targets and grants you an Absorb Shield for the damage that it deals. Now, this is pretty good, but we do have crazy Covenant abilities like Divine Toll, which is essentially casting 5 Avenger's Shields, okay? This is the most awesome ability that I can see in Shadowlands right now. I mean, there's some pretty crazy awesome abilities and Covenant abilities and stuff like that on other classes and specs, but Divine Toll, this is so fucking awesome. Like, I might put some footage in the background because dummies don't do it justice. But this is just so good. And the crazy thing about it is, again, due to Avenger's Shield, since you are making, Avenger's Shield strike 5 targets instead of 3, this thing is also going to strike up to 5 targets on all those 5 Avenger's Shields, which is insane. Okay, absolutely insane. So First Avenger gets a great benefit out of using Divine Toll Covenant ability, together. Then we have Crusader Judgment. So it's providing judgments to charges, and Grand Crusader grants you a charge of judgment. Now this feels like a very defensive ability. Why? Because Judgment supposedly is going to give you holy power, right? And you can combine with Sanctified Wrath, which is also making Judgment generate 2 holy power. So you can see where this is going with Crusader Judgment and stuff like that. You're going to be able to put out a lot more judgments in general, which will mean a lot more stacks of Shining Light for more free Word of Glory. So imagine like a fight where Shield of the Righteous is not very useful because it's just providing armor, and the boss or something like that is very centric around spell damage. This is going to be useless, so you want to focus on healing yourself, right? This will become very powerful for you to just spam Word of Glory, which, as I said before, it feels very powerful right now. And on top of that, you do also have a very interesting legendary to sort of go with this Judgment, quote-unquote, build, where it also makes Judgment reduce the cost of your, as a chance to reduce the cost of your next Holy Power spender ability by 1. So we're going to be able to put out even more of Word of Glories or Shield of the Righteous, which is, again, pretty insane and pretty cool. I like those synergies. Then we have Moment of Glory, which is kind of like the Bastion of Light, I think, was the talent that was here before. Since there's a cooldown ability that is going to make your next 3 Avenger Shields have no cooldown and deal 20% more damage. So essentially, more damage for you. Now, obviously, this has a defensive component because you're going to be able to generate a lot of holy power as well. Now, as I said, Avenger Shield is only generating extra holy power on new targets that you hit. But imagine that you are in a big pack, right? You are in a big pack that has like 5 or 6 targets. You throw an Avenger Shield, you're going to get 4 holy power, right? But if you pop Moment of Glory, you can actually target switch and just spam Avenger Shields and just get a shitload of holy power, and by consequence, again, by subsequently a lot of damage from Avengers Shields. So yeah, Avengers Shields is pretty crazy in Shadowlands. So this is also very funny to use. It's a little bit more bursty, you know, due to the cooldown nature of the ability itself, but it has a very interesting use for just extra damage and for on-demand burst, and on-demand holy power, which is also pretty cool, but obviously far more useful in multi-target situations due to the nature that holy power generation works with Avengers Shield. So very cool decisions here to do. Then we have, these tiers are the same here. So we have this new tier here, which we now get Divine Purpose, which is a Retribution talent, okay? This was a Retribution talent and is essentially making your holy power spender abilities, so Word of Glory or Shield of the Righteous, provide you a proc that is going to make the next one free. This also feels great. Now, at first I was like, yeah, I don't really want RNG in my tank, right? I want to predict everything in my tank. But in reality, the way that this procs with your Shield of Righteous, for an example, is that it's just an extra, right? It's just an extra benefit. Like I use it, I get a proc, I can use it again. This extends the duration. Great, it's a win-win situation. Or, alternatively, I mean, again, you can use it with a Word of Glory if you need. It's actually going to provide you even more healing, right? 20% more healing, which is great, right? So again, more decisions to make when you get that proc. Do you use on the Shield of the Righteous to extend it? Or do you use a Word of Glory in yourself? Or if you don't need a heal, maybe a party member needs the heal. So again, very cool decisions to make as well with Divine Purpose. Very cool indeed. And if nothing else is needed, you can just extend your Shield of the Righteous really easily, and that's really cool. Then we have Holy Avenger. So just like Retribution, this is a big cooldown that is making your holy power generation triple. So your Blessed Hammer, Hammer of the Righteous, is going to generate 3 holy powers. Okay, I'm going to put some footage in background to sort of so you can visualize that. So essentially, it's kind of like Moment of Glory. It's providing you on-demand, a shitload of on-demand holy power to, again, do a lot of Words of Glory. Because, again, remember, this has no cooldown. Or on-demand Shield of the Righteous, right? So again, just like Moment of Glory, just on-demand holy power that's in an emergency situation where you can put out a lot of spenders for whatever you might need, be healing or just keeping up Shield of the Righteous or just damage, right? Shield of the Righteous does a pretty decent amount of damage, so you can also use it for damage, or burst damage, which is also pretty nice. And then you have Seraphim, which is the same as before. It's now costing holy power, of course, and it's as the same use as before, even though the addition of Divine Purpose and Holy Avenger, I just find it so more useful than Seraphim. But, I mean, I'm just a Divine Purpose fanboy, but yeah, this still has its use. And then this tier here is essentially the same as before as well. We get the Hand of the Protector, which we discussed. And the last tier we have a Sanctified Wrath, which is extending Avenging Wrath by 25% and causing your Judgment to generate 2 holy power. Again, we discussed this a little bit. And then you have these other choices like Final Stand, which is making your Divine Shield taunt all targets in 15 yards. So this is like your big oh shit button, right? It's your near death button, like, you know, again, oh shit button, very similar to something like Decays where you have, you know, the sheath death thing, right? Very similar to that, just the Paladin version. And then we have Righteous Protector, which is holy power spender. As you spend a holy power, you're gonna get a reduction on cooldown on Avenging Wrath and the card of Guardian of Ancient Kings. So Sanctified Wrath seems to be like the go-to for most situations. You can go Righteous of the Protector if you want to go a little bit defensive, or you can go Final Stand if there's a particular situation that you either not going to be expecting or something very specific where you want to do a huge pull, for an example, and you can cheese that out with Final Stand, or you're progressing a very hard boss, and so on. So again, very cool talents, some very cool decisions, just like in our rotation, in our baseline spells and abilities. Very cool stuff. So let's look at our Covenant abilities now to see what we get. So in Paladin Covenant abilities, we get the Kyrian one, which is Divine Toll. This is the one that I said that is fucking awesome, which is making your Avenger Seal. Well, not making your Avenger Seal, it's a completely new ability that when you press it, is going to send 5 Avenger Shields, which is simply phenomenal, right? It's very useful, mechanically. It's gonna give you a lot of holy power. It's giving you a lot of damage, and if you stack spect rather into first Avenger, you're gonna get a absorb shield on you, which is also very good. But the only con of this ability is that in single target is not very useful. It's essentially an extra Avenger shield that you can use, which is fine. You're gonna get holy power and stuff like that, which is very useful for your mitigation and stuff. But this is so much more fun, like in dungeons. Like I cannot imagine playing a Protection Paladin doing Mythic Plus without Divine Toll. It's just so good. And then we get Vanquishers Hammer. Now, these other abilities are a little bit underwhelming when you actually see how awesome Divine Toll is. So, Vanquishers Hammer, which is a Maldraxxus Necrolord's Covenant ability, is essentially a sort of new judgment that when you throw, you're gonna get an buff that is gonna make your next Word of Glory cast Shield of the Righteous. Now, this feels a little bit weird. So, essentially, what this is providing is, if before you use your Word of Glory, like with, let's say, with the proc, with the 3 stacks, you're gonna get a free Shield of the Righteous. I mean, it's not a huge deal. It's kind of just saving you up some holy power by giving you Shield of the Righteous again free. So in a moment where you want to cast Shield of the Righteous and you have this up, and you also, you could use a little heal, you can pop Word of Glory and just get that Shield of Righteous with it in 1 GCD. So it's not a huge deal. I don't find it all that useful, but yeah. Then we have Ashen Hollow. Just like Vanquishers Hammer, I don't find it very useful. So this is the Venthyr Covenant ability. It's essentially a very big concentration AoE ability that it deals shadow damage, which is very triggering to a lot of paladins. And it's gonna deal damage, it's gonna heal you and your all allies, and with all enemies inside of it, you going to be able to use Hammer of Wrath regardless of their health. So again, I don't find it very useful. I find very hard to find situations where this could be very useful. It has a huge cast time, well, it does have a cast time which is very annoying and very clunky to use as a Protection Paladin. You don't want to be in the middle of a fight casting this. And it does have a very big cooldown, that's what I meant. It has a very big cooldown of 4 minutes. So again, I find it very hard to find situations where this could be useful, outside of very specific things. Then we have Blessing of the Seasons, which has undergone very big changes the day I posted my Retribution video finally. So before, this was extra auras, 4 extra auras that we would press. It would have a 30-second cooldown, I believe, and every 15 seconds you could switch to another aura and provide buffs to your entire raid group and etc. Now they changed this because it was very powerful, it was very broken, and now they change it to be sort of like a blessing. So it's a single target ability, so you can focus on an ally. So the buffs that you get is Blessing of Autumn, which is you're gonna bless your ally, and for 30 seconds their cooldowns are gonna recover 50% faster, which is insane. Well, this is number stuff, it might be tuned, but this on some specs is gonna be absurd. You get Blessing of Spring. Remember, these switch around, so you cannot keep using the same one. Is going to increase the allies' healing done and healing received by 20%, which is also really big. You have Blessing of Summer, which is causing their attacks to have a chance to deal holy damage. Not as big, but a nice flat damage increase. You get Blessing, and you get Blessing of Winter, which is going to make their attacks cause frost damage and reduce their movement speed and attack speed by 1%, stacking 10 times. Now, these buffs, the way they are now, are extremely powerful, right? So thematically, I really like this because I like the idea that when you play a paladin, you also play a sort of support class. That's one of the things that I loved about paladins back in the day, is their ability to provide a lot of useful buffs. Kind of like shamans provided a lot of useful totems, paladins provided a lot of useful buffs. So I like that this Covenant ability is covering that, is filling that gap, is filling that hole. Now, outside of tuning, which some of these will most certainly get, this as a protection feels odd, because like as a holy paladin, this can be very useful and very cool to use in a raid and in a dungeon, right? It caters to holy paladins really well, and I don't think tanks are the appropriate spec to do that. So again, I find this to be so much more useful for holy paladin. So again, that pretty much covers our Covenant abilities. Obviously, Divine Toll does take the cake as the most awesome Covenant ability, but we do have some new things now to talk about, since now we are in beta, which is Legendaries. So again, we cannot talk about conduits, they're not active on Paladins, but we can talk about Legendaries. Now, there's a lot of Legendaries, 5 per spec and 5 which is a cross-wide. But I do want to mention two specific legendaries which are very awesome. Well, one I mentioned, which is the Judgment one. And the other one is this, which is your Avenger Shield. When it returns to you, each target hit is going to increase the damage of your next Shield of the Righteous by 40%. This is crazy. And it's also kind of cleaving your Shield of Righteous in this big wave. And I'm not entirely sure if that's intended because the tooltip doesn't say so. But this is absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome, right? So you cannot stock it up indefinitely. It does have a cap of 5, but this in combination with Divine Toll, yep, it's pretty silly. It's pretty silly. It's pretty awesome as well. And the other one is this, which is causing your Avenger Shield to have a 50% chance to have its cooldown instantly reset when used. Now, when you combine this with your procs, when you combine this with Divine Toll, well, might as well just replace our action bars by just Avenger Shields, right? It's crazy. You're gonna use Avenger Shields so much. Like, even without this, I feel like I'm spamming Avenger Shields so much, and it never ceases to be awesome and fun. But yeah, this is just further extending that, which is really crazy. So again, in general, what are my overall thoughts about Protection Paladin? Very big positive. It's a wonderful, how should I put this? It's a big step up over the current version, right? You have very cool decisions to make due to the addition, the return of Holy Power. You have a lot of crazy things you can do with Avenger Shields and your Covenant abilities. There's some really crazy, just simply fun. It's simply fun things that you can do. And again, the decisions are awesome to make. It makes you thoroughly engaged with your Protection Paladin. And you also feel very powerful, which is a good thing to say on a tank. You feel very, very powerful. Obviously, that may change, but you do feel very powerful, feel almost immortal with the amount of damage that you put out, with the amount of self-healing that you can put out due to your Word of Glories, which again do not have a cooldown contrary to Light of the Protector. And with certain setups, again, you can almost spam this, and it's crazy. Right? It's absolutely crazy, but also very, very fun. So that's how I leave Protection Paladin. Very fun indeed. Alright guys, that pretty much covers it. Do let me know all of your thoughts down below on Protection Paladin, and as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.